How's it going? It's Rogue. Last video, I got some comments about just people asking where different loot is, like the armory in general. So, figured after, well, just showing you a little bit about um, like just basic UI stuff, that would be a good thing to follow up on. So, first, before I get anywhere else, I'm going to show you Zur. So this guy is a weekend vendor. He's only here on the weekends,
The Nine
and
will answer your
he
questions,
shows up in
Warlock.
like
Perhaps
different
not now,
places throughout the system.
but they
He just
will.
happens to be in the tower this weekend. So
These are
what's
from
special
the
about
Nine.
Zur here is he sells exotic gear. So it's a good source of like any exotics that you don't potentially have. So for example, this weekend, you can always buy an exotic engram. Granted, I don't have the space. I'd have to delete one of these. So now I could buy one of these for 97 legendary shards. It is quite expensive, but it'll give you a random rolled exotic. He has one exotic weapon, so this week is hard light, and then he has one exotic for each class. So typically, when it comes to armor, you're gonna be you're gonna want to be looking for something in like I want to say like 66, 67 rolls or above. That's like good. Granted, if you're like just getting into the game, if you just happen to get any sort of armor that you want to try out, by all means, go for it. Like, it's a video game; it's meant to have fun. If you're like getting more into like the grindy stage, this would be more of like a decent um, rolled exotic. Granted, not a personal favorite for getaway artists, but yeah. This he also sells a quest is Xenology. Basically, whenever you play like strikes, crucible, gambit, the ritual activities, it will fill up this quest bar, and once you complete it, which you have a full, it stays in your inventory forever until you complete it. Then the next weekend, you can turn this into Zur. And what these are used for is purchasing exotics from a kiosk, which I'll show you in a bit. Zur also comes here with a variety of weapons. So, generally speaking, they're like decently mid, I guess. He does sell some weapons that are craftable though. So, like for example, Thoughtless here. If you get it, now I already have Thoughtless crafted. So, if there is a box here, then you can slot, if you go over to Seasons, a Deep Sight Harmonizer. Now, a Deep Sight Harmonizer essentially gives you a free red border weapon. And you get, I think, like 6 of them a season if you have the season pass. Granted, I haven't used any of mine because, well, I haven't really found anything to use them on. Zur also, if you page over, will have a Hawk Moon, which these are random rolled, but like it's a quote-unquote random roll. It'll always have its exotic perk, however, the trait will be different each time. And it does have a catalyst that you can work on as well. He also has a rotating armor set that usually, like, it's may not be the best, but if you don't have any of these, then you can use them for cosmetics, which I'll talk about in a little bit as well, I guess. Speaking of turning in Xenology,
The Nine
there
are
we go.
meant for you to have that.
And boom, that's what it should look like.
I hope to be
So,
here again.
there's Zur. Going on, might as well just hit all the vendors here in the tower. If you go over here to Saint 14, this is your Trials of Osiris vendor. If you're just getting into the game,
my friend.
probably won't
What
be
story
seeing him
do
too
you
much.
want to share?
Trials is like the competitive PvP game mode. Gives you different passages, and you have to buy one of these in order to play the game mode. Typically, I'd go for like a Passage of Mercy. It lets you lose a couple times, and then like without losing your flawless. You need to win 7 games in a row, and then you can get just very exclusive loot. He's got his own gear that you can buy and earn. And yeah, typically you won't be going to him too much unless you're either grinding out trials or that's pretty much it. So continuing on over here into the main part of the tower, I'll bring you to, let's say, Zavala next. Everyone should be fairly familiar with Zavala. The opening sequence should show you who he is. It doesn't really tell you too much about him though, which is somewhat of a shame. So here
Greetings.
is the Titan Vanguard. He is like the director of all the strike missions.
Requisition complete.
So as you complete strikes, you'll fill up this meter, and this is true with all vendors. You fill up the meter. Every time it gets full, you get an engram. Now with those engrams, you can focus them. So if you have 3 of them and 5,000 glimmer, then you can purchase these weapons up here, which these weapons are just like your normal strike weapons. They'll drop from any strike, just upon completion. The Nightfall weapons, these are your typically a little bit better than your average strike weapons. And the Adept version here drops from the Grandmaster Nightfall. That is the highest tier Nightfall that anyone can do. You're, I believe, 30 power under it if you are at max power, or light level. What's special about Adept weapons is that, let's see if I have one on me. I do. Okay. So if you have an Adept weapon, you can put Adept mods on it. What that means is it essentially just gives you a bonus to a specific stat you want. You can put Adept big ones on once you unlock it or buy it, which this is a combined boss spec and major spec. Typically, Adept weapons also roll with a couple more perks. So Zavala here, pretty useful. In his legacy gear, I would recommend at least trying to go for a decent hothead. A pretty good roll would be this here field prep and clown cartridge. Basically, you can just crouch, shoot off 2 rockets right after one another, reload really fast, and then get another one. If you can, I would try to get it with impact casing.
Back to the front, girl.
Moving on over to Shaxx here, and this is currently Shaxx in the tower, not in the Brave area.
Time to fight, Guardian.
So Shaxx here is your man. Basically the same thing as Zavala, except for the Crucible. So he'll have his own set of weapons here. The thing with Shaxx though, whenever you reset your vendor, so when you hit rank 16 and you reset, you will essentially gain another perk column unlocked. So like, say for example, I buy this on
I know you'll use this well.
If you have the engrams from the current playlist, so like my engrams are kind of old because I just never really used them, they will unlock extra perk columns here. So like, instead of just 1 in each of these, you will eventually get like 2 here and 1 here. The most I've seen is 3 in each, but that requires a lot of Crucible playing, and that took a while. Generally speaking, the Unending Tempest I think is the only like real weapon that people grind for from him. The Exotic Archive here, it's in between your vaults. This is where you can go to access all of your exotics. You can buy them using those ciphers that I talked about earlier from Xur. Now, with this Legend of Acrius here, for example, it does say that you need Spoils of Conquest. You get those from raids. Everything else, though, you can just purchase with a cipher, some exotic shards, which you can buy from Rahul, or they drop from Nightfall strikes. This is a good source to get every exotic weapon in the game, with the exception of a few quest weapons. That being like Xenomorph, the exotic machine gun that fires explosive slugs. Moving over here to Rahul, he's actually
Let's see
fairly
what we've got for you.
useful for the people who may be returning from Destiny 1, you know, or like early Destiny 2. He didn't really have too much of a purpose once you hit higher tiers in the game. Now you can actually focus exotic engrams with him to whatever you'd like. Granted, it is fairly expensive, as you need the engram, a decent bit of glimmer, and then some ascendant shards. But the good thing about that is that in this materials exchange, you can buy ascendant shards. Again, fairly expensive. Before you go for the ones here, I would recommend going for this bottom special order, which you can only buy a certain number of these per day and per week. Oh, excuse me. Moving over here to Banshee 44, he also occasionally has a decent selection of weapons that rotate. At least he did. I honestly haven't been to Banshee in forever. You can focus different weapons here. These are non-crafted, except for Palmyra, I believe, and Taipan. Taipan is a very solid linear fusion rifle for Void, but if you have a choice, I would recommend the current Void seasonal linear fusion rifle, the Doomed Partitioner from Riven. Funnel Web is a fantastic choice. It's essentially the Recluse, or Recluse, however you say that, but with Brave Weapons coming back, it's kind of like a side grade. Side grade meaning like they're both fairly like about the same. You can work with either or. Ah, yes, his featured here. These will rotate, and then he may also have a miscellaneous weapon for you.
Keep it loaded.
If you have a terminal here, this is where you're gonna get your pre-order bonuses. So like I haven't just picked up any of these, but this is where you'll get that stuff. Moving on over here to this side of the tower. This is where you're going to find Ikora, the Drifter, 801, and Hawthorne. So starting with Ikora, she's going to be fairly important, especially when you're starting out the game. She is the vanguard for the Warlocks.
Yes, Guardian?
So with her, you can pick up these New Light quests, or well, I say New Light, but they're geared towards New Lights. Basically, you complete this quest and it'll give you a exotic that's tailored to a subclass. So like for example, since I'm on my Warlock right now, if I were to complete this Arc quest, it would give me the Crown of Tempest. Now, with each of these, you can go in them, and this is where you can buy all of your fragments, which are fairly expensive, as you can see, 25,000 glimmer, which, as like a newer player, that could take you some time to get. All of them are worth it, though, just for unlocking, like, more variety in your playstyle. You'll also have to buy your grenades. You'll start with, I think, 3 unlocked, if I'm not mistaken. And then you'll also be able to purchase supers. Basically anything you see here. This is another starting quest like these two. This is fairly new. It's a new light kit. Basically, you can preset your character with a build that Bungie has made. Typically, I would recommend Solar for pretty much everyone. Titans, Hunters, and Warlocks. Between Golden Gun, with, you know, Celestial Nighthawk, if you do have that, or eventually get it. Well of Radiance is just a all-around good pick for Warlocks, and then the Titan Bonk Hammer. I know it's been nerfed, but it's still a very solid choice.
Walk in the light.
Hawthorne up here. She is a fairly decent source of getting pinnacle weapons. So once you
Guardian.
join a clan,
Oh,
she'll give you powerful and pinnacle tiers as your clan completes things. Also, the Last Wish raid will have a quest associated with it that Hawthorne dispenses, and once you complete the quest, basically you just do a full run of the raid. You can get a guaranteed red border weapon of one that you haven't unlocked yet. This is also where you can buy some raid banners in case you don't have any. You can buy one, or you can buy a bundle of 10.
Catch you later.
Now, moving down here, this is where you're going to find Ada and the Drifter. Typically, they don't have a whole lot. Ada may have a armor set or some shaders that you may not have. Which, if that's the case, by all means, you can get it. Cosmetics are a must.
Hello.
And what is good about Ada is she sells these special bounties, which will give you this armor synth material. Once you complete the bounty,
Come visit
you can
again
come
soon.
here to the loom and deposit that synth cord, or synth weave, or I forget what the Titans is. That will give you one
Pyramid's approach fills me with dread. Despite being surrounded by guardians, I
synth weave
can't
bolt,
imagine what the
which
armored
you can use to
fighters will
purchase
like
any
in their
locked
lives.
cosmetic item. So something that you have acquired previously will show up here. Once you unlock it using a synthweave bolt, then you can permanently just change it in and out of your appearance. Now, granted, if you've bought a bundle of armor, like from Eververse, it will just show up here. You won't need to buy it and then unlock it. This is only for like in-game armor sets, so you can preview it before you buy it, so you're not just gonna be buying something. You can put shaders on it as well, see how it meshes with your overall armor. And then finally in the tower, we're gonna see Drifter here, who typically doesn't have a whole lot. He does have the Malfeasance quest though, which Malfeasance is, I believe, like an A tier
What's up,
exotic.
hero?
It's one of my favorite ones just because of how fun it is. It's a hand cannon that stacks slugs, and once you hit 5 slugs on a target, they explode. So he'll be able to give you that quest, and you'll be able to complete it through talking to him and then doing a couple different missions. In terms of his weapons here, none of them are terribly like outstanding. Breakneck, however, can roll with a fairly good roll. The problem is it has like a combined 18 different perks. So if you're looking for that one specific perk combination, then it might take you a little bit, and that requires playing Gambit, which I know the community has mixed feelings on. Also, when it comes to getting armor, if you have not unlocked a piece of armor yet, you can spend 3 engrams and it will unlock it for you. Basically, as you can see here, it says 5 out of 3. I can spend 3 engrams, it'll purchase that piece of armor for me, and then I'll have it. It will be unlocked for, cosmetic purposes. It'll give me a random rolled one. But if you already have a piece of armor, then it will show up as 1. So like that would be 5 out of 1. So that's a good way to figure out like what you still need, what you potentially don't have yet. Just while you're at the vendor. Now I'm gonna go on and travel to the Enclave here. This is in Savathun's Throne World. So when it comes to your collections, you can always come over here and see your weapons, what you don't have. They're all designated by a symbol. This is basically when they came out. So like if it has this box, that's Red War, Curse of Osiris, Forsaken. It's just DLCs that they are associated with. So all of these ones you probably won't be able to get because, well, they were sunset. Now, when it comes to newer weapons, um, you can find them all over the system. Now, some of them can only be found in specific locations. There are different world drop items, um, as well as some legacy items that are still in rotation, but you can't really get anywhere. So, for example, Chroma Rush. This was from a previous season. You can only get it from Dares of Eternity on a weekly rotator. So what I mean by that is every week Dares will drop like an armor set and a weapon set from a specific season. So if you're looking for like a specific auto rifle like Chroma Rush, Ignition Code, what have you, you'll have to play Dares during that rotator, which you can Google and just figure out what the rotator is for that week. And then by completing it, you'll get that weapon. Now, there's various different types of adept weapons. Adept weapons are meant to be like the pinnacle. So the summoner here, this is a Trials of Osiris weapon. This is one of that like pinnacle loot that I was talking about. So if you go flawless, you can get that. Shadow price as well. Now, this weapon, the Husk of the Pit, is associated with the Crota's End Raid, and then once you acquire it, it will give you a quest. You can get the Eidolon Alloy, and then eventually the Necrochasm Exotic. Now, raids also have adept weapons. So this Abyss Defiant here is a Crota's End master version loot. So basically the only way to get adept weapons right now in the game is by completing a master mode of a raid. Granted, loot drops after each encounter, so depending on which encounter you complete and the loot associated with that encounter, you could potentially get it. So for example, I unlocked the shotgun from Crota's End that is the adept weapon. Now, some of these come from seasons. There's Nightfall weapons. Again, this adept version here, Comedian, was a Nightfall drop, which adept weapons only drop from, I believe, Grandmasters. I forget if they drop from Master version, but guaranteed from a Grandmaster upon completion. They are randomly rolled, so if you're, missing the perk columns that you'd like, you'll unfortunately have to, again, run that high-end content to try to get it again. As you scroll further and further, you'll eventually see that you're getting into like your greens and your blues, which in that case you can reacquire them. Also here, you'll see that there are different ornaments that you can put on weapons. These you can find in the store for Bright Dust typically. Every now and then Bungie sells them as like a weekly rotator. Also, once you complete a vendor and reset them, so like Zavala, Shax, Drifter, there will be a ritual weapon that you can get a ornament for, depending on like each vendor. So there will be 3 different types, one for each vendor. So like, for example, the Sibelius X, this is the Crucible version. This is the Nightfall version. Just cool little tidbit that you can do. Armor is very similar to weapons in that some only drop from specific places. So like this here, this is your Crucible armor sets. You can buy these from Shax if you haven't unlocked them. This is Iron Banner from Lord Saladin when that event is active, and then Trials of Osiris. Now, it is fairly nice that each of these is separated. So competitive, this is going to be your Crucible. Gambit's Gambit. World, this is basically any destination. So like each planet has its own set of items, and a vendor has their own set of weapons that you can get. So like this stuff was from a previous expansion. You can see here, this is from the Throne World with the Witch Queen campaign. This is from Lightfall. Some of this will just drop randomly from engrams that you find on the ground. Like, for example, I find this tangled web suit all the time. Factions, this stuff, again, more or less, this is more your strike gear, as well as just random like ritual completion. Events, these are like special things that happen. So for example, like Guardian games, or like the Halloween event, the Dawning, that sort of stuff. Seasons, each season has its own armor set associated with it that you can unlock. Again, if you haven't unlocked it, you can probably go to either Zur or Dares to get that legacy gear. Okay, endgame. Endgame is like your raids, your dungeons, that sort of stuff. So this all here is from like raids that are no longer in the game. You'll never be able to unlock this, unfortunately, unless Bungie decides to bring it back. Starting here with the Great Hunt, this is for Last Wish. This is still in the game, and you can play it. You can unlock that. This is Garden of Salvation. I've only done that once for Divinity, so this and this armor set are associated with Prophecy, the dungeon. This is shoot, what's that raid? It is on Europa. Deepstone Crypt, that's the one. Vault of Glass, which is a legacy raid from Destiny 1. This is from the 30th anniversary dungeon. This is from Vow of the Disciple raid. Typically, your raid armor is going to be like your... Bungie has described it as like the best looking armor for like the most challenging game types. And you can always mix and match. This cowboy gear is pretty popular. It's from Spire of the Watcher, which is a dungeon. And this Taken King suit, very cool. It shades incredibly well. Has this nice flowy appearance. That is from the Ghosts of the Deep dungeon. Before getting into any endgame content, I would recommend either finding someone who has done it before, or getting to a point where you're comfortable with figuring stuff out while doing mechanics and getting shot at. It's endgame content for a reason, basically. There's a lot of moving pieces, and while yes, it's fun, I believe everyone should at some point in their Destiny experience get to experience a raid. I would recommend doing at least a little bit of research or just prep beforehand. So like making sure you've got like some of the decent weapons, armor, that sort of stuff, a decent grasp of mods. This leveling tab, you probably won't ever grab anything from here unless you're just doing stuff for shits and giggles. So like you can grab this white gear and then your ornaments here. Some of this drops from the Eververse store for Bright Dust. This is like stuff that you buy. Yes, so here in the Enclave, I know I moved here and then spent that good bit of time explaining those two tabs. This is where you're going to craft weapons. Make sure that you unlock this area before you start, I guess, decoding your red border weapons. Now to craft something, you approach the relic, you go to shape. If I want to, for example, get this Age-Old Bond, I would click on it. You're going to do this beginning frame at first. As you level it up, so like for example this says weapon level 7, you will be able to like add. This is a masterwork, pretty much. So it'll increase a stat. You can see on the right hand side of the screen like a bump from 82 to 92 with range, and then this one from 38 to 48 with handling. But to begin, you just have this basic one. When you're first crafting something, you only have a couple options for stuff. It doesn't really matter typically which one you do when you're first starting out. But as you level up weapons, as you can see here, like requires weapon level 9, you can unlock more perks. And the best part about crafting is that you can enhance perks. So, for example, let's say here, kill clip. Reloading after a kill grants increased damage. And then the enhanced version, reloading after defeating a target grants increased damage for an improved duration. So basically, you get bonus damage for longer. And like basically, it's just a better version of the perks. Now, for enhanced traits, currently you can do this with all crafted weapons. When it comes to adept weapons, they are working on it so that you can enhance like raid adept weapons. So for example, that Abyss Defiant auto rifle that I showed you, you'll be able to enhance those perks. These mementos, they're just kind of like cool cosmetics you get. So once you complete a Grandmaster, you'll get you have a chance to get a Nightfall memento. This is from the Dawning. There's one for Gambit, one for Trials. And then once you complete it, you just shape it. If you want to change the roll on a weapon, you can reshape it. It has to be in your inventory, or oh, I guess not. They changed it. So long as you have the weapon crafted and it's not locked. So as you can see, I locked this Ikilos. It's you can't change it. If it's unlocked like this submission, you can go in, you can change whatever trait you want, you can alter the barrel, the mag, and this is where you can add those enhanced traits. Put on mementos, and you'll shape your weapon. Before you come here, I'd recommend having a lot of glimmer and a lot of enhancement cores, because those are the two currencies that you need the most. If you're enhancing traits, as you can see here, you do need the orange golf balls, the Ascendant alloys, which you can get from Rahul, as well as other endgame content. So once you unlock patterns for stuff, then you can come here, you can get the weapons crafted. This over here, Relic Conduit, you don't really do anything with, aside from like the beginning quest. Once you do craft a weapon, or if you're just bored, you can come down here, and this is like a target practice range. You can shoot these, figure out about how much damage you're doing with stuff at different ranges. So it's just a cool little area to figure out how something feels, how you like it, and it does refill all your ammo. As you can see, I'm now at max for all my stuff. Wouldn't recommend testing wayframe launchers here though. Alright, let's see. Now when it comes to the helm, this is where your seasonal vendors are at. So this is where you're gonna primarily grind out your high tier armor. Simply because you get a ton of seasonal engrams throughout as you just do anything really in the game, which you can track here on your engram tracker. So just for example, if you go down here to the current seasons, Season of the Wish, jump through this portal here, you can go over here and speak to Riven, who is the vendor for this season. Each one has the same layout. It'll have a focusing tab, rewards, bounties. This is your number of engrams. You can only buy stuff with however many engrams you have, and I believe they do vary. Now, each of the seasons has a number of weapons. The weapons are craftable, all of them. And each week, you will have a guaranteed red border if you come over and grab this, so long as you have that upgrade with the vendor. So you can craft all of these, and then if you come over here, this is where you're going to want to focus your armor. So as you can see, it'll focus with a high discipline stat due to the equipped ghost mod. What that means is if you go into your character, go to your ghost, you can look at this mod here. You can change this so that it focuses on a stat that you would like. So if you want, for example, discipline for more grenades, you can put that on. Go back to the vendor. Go over here, and then you can purchase whatever you'd like. Now, when it says focusing with a high stat, that just means that that stat is guaranteed at least 10. It's typically going to be your highest one. So like for example, this discipline is the highest. It's not guaranteed to be those like 66 rolls that I was talking about earlier. Basically, you're gambling at this point. You're trying to find some sort of combination that typically gives you like 2 100 stats. Granted, you can mess around with masterworks, which a masterwork is getting this armor to tier 10. Once that happens, you gain +2 to every stat. And so basically, if you have all of your gear masterworked, you have +2, 4, 6, 8, 10 to every stat. So if you're sitting at like, 90 in a couple different stats, then you would bump those up to 100, which is the max tier. Now, Destiny stats are kind of weird in that they're divided into 2 blocks. So you have your discipline, intellect, and strength in one block. And then you have your recovery, resilience, and mobility in a different block. What I mean by blocks is typically you're going to want to focus on your ghost, discipline, intellect, or strength, because whichever class you are, being warlock, hunter, or titan, will automatically get like a hidden boost to whichever one of these you're going for. And so typically for warlocks, they need recovery for their rifts. You tend to get a little bit higher recovery in all of your armor pieces. You tend to. It's not guaranteed. But because of that, resilience is necessary. It's your health. So generally speaking, I would recommend focusing one of these and then just keep rolling until you get decent stat between whatever one of these you want and resilience, with resilience being like your second pick. Yes. Now, seasonal vendors are good because you can acquire engrams for each season, so you can focus a ton of different engrams into armor and weapons. So you can go to Riven, you can come up here to your, this is the original season, I think it was Defiance. Granted, since it is a past season, you'll have to reacquire the heirloom to work on it. I focus all my stuff, so I've only got one at the moment. Yeah, so this is going to be like your good area for armor pieces. There is like a little bit, I say quote unquote hidden armor set. It's called Artifice armor. Artifice armor, as you can see here on my bond, is supposedly like the end game armor. currently you can only get it from dungeons. What it does is, in the past, it gave you an extra perk column here that you could add like another slot. What it does now is it gives you basically a +3 to any stat you want for free. So it's not necessary by any means. You don't you don't need it, but if you get a really good roll, then it is nice. And it'll be marked with the Artifice Armor tag, as you can see here. Yeah, so I think that is pretty much it. Oh, aside from the new weapons with shacks. So if you go here into the light, you can go to the Hall of Champions. And I believe this is the final destination. I know this has been a very long-winded video, and I am kind of dehydrated right now. So I appreciate you guys sticking around if you have to this point. Now, there are different quests associated with various weapons. Those tend to be the exotic weapons. I'll just briefly show those after this area. So this is the newest area. It just came out, I think, this week. Each of these crates, as you level shacks here up, will give you a piece of armor. That's more just for cosmetic reasons. And it's marked with the class symbol on the ground so you know which one it is. Shax here is selling his Brave Arsenal. This is the like top of the line weapons. As you rank him up, you'll get trophies and engrams. I believe right now you cannot reset him, so once you get rank 17, that's it. Also, keep in mind this key here. I'll come back to it. But basically, this is supposed to be like the top of the line weapons. It's some of like the most broken ones that Destiny's seen. So if you already completed stuff or you just want a weapon, you can come over here and redeem 10 trophies. It'll give you a random weapon from this arsenal. So like the scout rifle, for example, the hung jury. These weapons will typically only have one perk here and here. They're random rolled. They're very good, especially with this origin trait. Typically, people are going for, I would say, the Recluse with Master of Arms or Desperate Measures and Subsistence or Feeding Frenzy. Some combination of those 4 perks. As well as an Edge Transit, which I do not have. I'm still grinding for it. It's a grenade launcher that rolls with bait and switch, similarly to this grenade launcher here. Right, now with this area, if you go back to the beginning, each of these rooms will eventually be openable, the blue doors. But for now, what you can do is go up here and you can attune to a weapon. That just basically means you're going to increase your odds of getting that from the activity. So like right now I'm attuned to this Edge Transit, so I'm more likely to get Edge Transit. You can also attune to Hung Jury, Recluse, any of them. However, you must first complete a quest associated with it, which is located with our site here, is next to Shax. So you talk to our site, he'll have some quests up here, and they will give you the weapon attunement. Now, this key and
one of our
this key
returns
are used for accessing this room, which is not currently available. It's for a super black shader. Right, and the last thing I'll go over for, I guess, the armory and the arsenal is exotic missions. Now, there is an exotic mission rotator. Right now, it's presage. Now, each exotic mission in this area will give you a different exotic associated with that mission. So, this one, I believe, gives you Deadman's Tail. Once it is available, like once this quest comes up, you can unlock the weapon and it becomes craftable. I believe I briefly went to the Whisper of the Worm when I was in the Enclave. There is another quest in here in Into the Light for Whisper of the Worm. This is a time gate. I believe all of them are time gated. It's fairly doable. Um, Again, would recommend doing like practicing on the lower difficulty before trying Legend, which the Legend versions are where you will get catalysts for your different weapons. And I believe that should be everything. So let me know if there are any other questions. I hope that helped cleared some stuff up. I know it was kind of long-winded and a little bit jumbled, but yeah, hope you all have a great day.